We're going to call this meeting to order. It is 6 o'clock. It is the 29th of January, and this is the Finance Committee meeting. Here tonight, myself, Amy Fiden, we have Shardul Parmar, Paul Benjamin, Peter Matusko, and Andy Kopacki. To start off the meeting, we have minutes. Thank you to Peter Lohr, and he gave us minutes from December 18th and January 15th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? No? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are done. All right. So, we have a lot of stuff on our agenda, but it's just, I put down anything that I could possibly think of that we may want to discuss. I'm going to start with the next budget item, or the next item, which is the regular FY26 budget. I don't believe we have any new numbers, but Linda or Mike, is there anything that you wanted to let us know?
So I can give a sort of preliminary overview, but yes, we are mid-process, and we haven't gotten back to department heads with our what we are thinking with the various budgets, so we're certainly not going to start announcements at a public meeting. But let me tell you how our approach to some general items that impact this budget. We see it as our mission, it is our mission, that we do the best budget that we can within the revenues that we have and any other appropriate funding sources. We just do the best job we can with available funds. We don't go beyond that into the politics. We're not making any changes as any kind of form of scare tactics. I've seen this in other towns where, oh, we don't have enough money, I guess we'll take, a whole program away, or a segment of, we'll take sports away, or something like that. We're not doing anything like that. Our priority is to do the best we can to maintain the current level of services. And to do it this way, obviously, it takes more time, and we're getting more information by the day. Some of it's good and some of it not. So we're working with it, so we're going to need a little more time. We're hoping to have a budget ready. We call it a first pass budget. Usually by this time, in February, not that early, but that's when we have the final one, and I still hope we can be there. But because we do have some touchy issues this year, we thought it was a good thing to do this kind of first sweep and get everyone sort of on board and understanding what we're dealing with this. The last time that we talked about revenues, we were looking at about having $610,000 extra to spread throughout the entire budget. We have since had some small increases working with department heads, and taxes part went up a bit, cherry sheet estimates went up a bit, but they're not real significant. We also made the decision that we will use stabilization fund. We will be recommending stabilization fund to an extent to cover portions of the budget where that's appropriate. This is not for just general operating funds, but more on that as we go through the season. We're also talking about reclaiming OPEB funds that were even budgeted this year and getting them back in and redirecting them into the budget and not funding OPEB for next year. Before we made that decision, I know that before we made that decision, we had a lengthy meeting with our advisor, Parker Elmore Dunn of Odyssey Advisors, about what this would mean for Hadley, and I would be happy to to go into that. We can both discuss that, how our outcome there. And based on our discussion with him, we were comfortable taking a pause for a few years and setting up a different OPEB plan. And yes, I would like to go into more with that with you if you have some time. The budget, we had mentioned before that bringing the ambulance back in was going to have a big impact on the budget. That's as far as we got before, but I want to mention that we have a couple big budget busters this year. The $160,000 increase in retirement funding, and as of today, finding that there's an 18% 18% increase in health insurance, which means $430,000 just on that one line. So between insurance and retirement, where there's another $600,000 before anyone's gotten anything more in their operating budgets. So this has been a real challenge for us to deal with as far as how much of it we coping with it. Like I said, we're looking for these other funding sources, but also decreasing the requests from departments probably more than we would have wanted to. And there will, I think, need to be a certain amount of postponing to fall on items that can be put off to fall. It's something like, we know how much the insurance is going to be. Maybe it won't be that high. Maybe we're going to have to reclaim some of that money and then fund it again in the fall. But we are not going to use future anticipated free cash to fund the 26 budget in any other capacity. So again, we're still wrestling with that one. So that's kind of the big overview of some pretty big issues that we're dealing with this year. Do you want me to do OPEB? I know you want me to go a little bit more
I was
into
just
that
looking
this
for what we were
time?
up, we were at 190 previously, right?
We were doing 190 was,
Right.
190 was the FY25 amount.
Right, so we were going to go to 2.
It was going to be
Right.
200.
Okay.
So
And-
even during COVID, we did something.
Which is what puts us in such a great position right now.
And so
Thank
it was.
goodness we did that.
Right, and it was so important that we always took care of something to do with OPEB and had a plan.
Yes, and having the plan, we did change the plan at that
Yep,
point.
and we
because-
needed to, yep.
Yeah, our funding at that point had been climbing a certain amount, and we were, I think, got up as high as almost 270,000, or maybe it was 270,000 that we
Oh,
funded
yeah.
the year before COVID. And with a certain percentage increase each year after that. So that was a plan, and we solidly followed that plan. And that was very much to our credit when we went for our Standard & Poor rating
Right.
the next year with the bonding. When we got hit with COVID, instead of just stopping COVID and saying, we'll figure this out later, we actually created a new plan. Amy, I think, and I'm not sure, I think we might have skipped it that very first year, like right when, our first year in COVID.
Yeah, I don't even think we did. I'm not sure, but
You know-
maybe it was only 10,000 that we put in. It was
Well,
something just.
that's it, you're right.
It was
We did
something very, very small, just to say it
Yeah.
was something.
Yeah,
FY22 was 68, almost 60, almost 60.
Every year we did
66.
Yeah.
something. We
Yeah,
never
we
just said no.
yeah, we might have done
Yeah.
10,000 or something.
Yeah.
And because we did, so the new plan was, we figured, when we got back on board, is we started at a figure, I think we started at 140 or 150 and said, we'll go up 10,000 each year. It felt kind of meager, it felt like we weren't back where we were. But again, it was something, and we followed it religiously every single year. And because we followed the plans, that has really helped with the evaluation of where we are. Mike and I were pleased to find, we were talking, what if we take a pause for a few years? And he says, you guys are in the 75th percentile in Mass municipalities for successfully funding your OPEB. 75th percentile for Little Hadley. And so much of that, I can get these figures for you later, so much of that is the growth because we got started early. And we just can't emphasize enough that the more you get the money in there and you get the return on the investment, the less we have to pay out of our budget.
We even took, even when we didn't have the money, it was said it was so important to us, we even took out of our stabilization
We
to
did.
fund the OPEB.
Yes, yes.
Why
So-
is the health insurance up 18%? That's not normal.
No.
It isn't, and there's a story there too. Can I wrap up the?
Oh, sure.
Tell you
Yeah.
what our plan is on
Yeah.
OPEB, and then I think that we should visit
Sure.
that. It is kind of stunning. But the OPEB plan for taking a pause, it's not just a pause and then we'll get back on board with this one. The reason this is not really going to cost us is not a lot in the long run, is he suggested, and I think it's a great plan, and I'm going to put it into writing and bring it to select board in a few weeks, is if you understand the retirement is up so high as it is because we're all, the towns in the local retirement, New Hampshire County retirement system, are funding, are paying for unfunded liability, past liability, just the way our town is funding OPEB. We as a group are helping Hampshire County Retirement fund their unfunded liability, and that will be done in 32. We're funding like $2 million a year into the retirement out of our budget. And when we get that fully funded, which is anticipated to be 32, and I'm not just talking about Hadley's share, we have no control over this, we pay the bills, and they are billing, and with a plan that is to have all the towns paid off 32 or 32.
Yep.
And then, if our plan is then to redirect that funding to OPEB, or a significant percentage of it, then pretty much in that same time span we were originally planning, we're going to hit the mark at the same time with our OPEB. So
Okay.
that
That's
is
good.
that's a super solid plan.
Would it be better to just put 10,000 in a year right now, just to have something going in? Does that help?
I think
Does it
you're
help
gonna-
us? I know you've already gone through all this, so.
Based upon the plan that he laid out in front of us,
Just fine with that.
yeah, no, I mean,
Okay.
and to be completely honest with you, I don't even know that we have it.
Right,
I don't
okay.
know that we want to be
That's fine.
messing around with numbers.
No,
that
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
but no,
fine.
I understand, that's what we had done before, but this whole, and it is not like the funding from the retirement funds hasn't been brought up before. It just seems so far away. Now it's not so far away anymore. When I first was talking with David about this in 18 or 19, that was just, way out in the future. But now this is and we had to get the money into the OPEB. So I think that, sometimes you can take a lot of credit for your planning, and other times you just made the right call and got a little bit lucky. I think we have some of each. I think that got us off to a great start. And as you say, Amy, we continue to stick with that plan, and now it's okay for us to take a little break.
The only part of that I would disagree with is I don't think it was luck. I think the decisions that were made by this committee and by Linda in the past are what got this town where it is right now. He was harping on how amazing it was that we were in the 75th percentile, and there's other cities and towns out there that are literally at 0. They have not put anything into it. So I don't think it was luck. I think it was good planning by those in charge. And I was nervous before we had the meeting about taking a pause at all. And based upon where the town put itself in, and with Linda and the finance committee's commitment to this, I'm not concerned at all. I'm really not. I felt really good about it. So
Okay.
it's not great that we have to do it, but at the same time, it's not going to hurt.
Okay. Thank you.
And on the insurance, did you jump?
No.
You.
No, go ahead. I almost cried today.
Please. There was an online seminar today that Joan and her replacement to do Jen attended, and we had gotten news during the week that the 15% she was anticipated, maybe a little high. Turns out it's low, and they're looking for 18%. So.
Is this one bid, or how many? Do we go out to bid?
Our health insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, is our Hampshire County insurance for municipalities.
And we don't have any choice?
The retirement group, the county insurance group has a choice. So not we as a town. I'm not 100%. Maybe we can pull out and figure something else out, but I don't know that would really benefit in the long run. Maybe the insurance trust will look into other things. I don't know. I didn't listen to it, and I only talked to Joan for about this long. But I certainly said, why? The same way you are. And she said, well, remember back when they had it at 0% increase. And we had a certain amount that was put away, what do you call it, in trust, or they were holding it.
Escrow.
Escrow, thanks. They were holding it aside, and then instead of increasing the percentages, they said, well, let's just take a little more. We'll pay it off and we'll subsidize. And they were draining that pool of funds to subsidize past insurance increases. or passed to defray increases. And now, day of reckoning. They don't have the funds to continue to subsidize. I don't know whether we're down at zero, honestly. Joan
funded
didn't
the
talk to me
escrow?
with plans that I then divulged all this, but.
It might make sense for us to get more information from Joan and bring it to
Yeah.
the next meeting, or even invite Joan to the next meeting
Wow.
so she can.
Right, you'll be-
Yeah.
She's-
Right.
And at least some options, meaning we can't just, in business, somebody throws you 18%, you start looking at other options
Oh, yeah.
very quickly. So for us to just kind of just say, it's 18% and that's it,
Well,
I just want to make sure that
We're
we're
part of a-
looking at options.
We're part of a group.
Yeah.
And,
I can tell you that I get all of Carolyn's and David Nixon's old email. I have like 5 different emails that come in, and one of the email groups is a group of small town administrators. It's kind of a listening email.
Mhm.
And they have been talking about this and super concerned about it for quite a while. When we heard the 15% number, that had fluctuated many times. It went 15% and then, it's not gonna be that bad, it'll be 8 to 10, something like that. The discussion that I was reading within those emails gave me the impression that this was something that we're locked into somehow as a group. So, again, we would have to talk to Joan, she's the benefits.
And we had increases in the previous years. Like last year, we had an increase.
yeah, they've usually been, they've been as low as 4, 6, 8. I think they always gave us the rule of thumb. I know when I was doing the budgets early on, it's like, always plan on like about 6%, and so it went up. It's went up quite a bit. If you're looking to compare it to other years, remember, you're not just looking at the insurance as a rate increase, you're looking at probably increases in the policies and the number of people taking the policy or changes in and out of.
All the new
individual
hires and all the
family-
increases.
Individual and family plans too, so it's the total increase there that you're seeing, so.
But when you look year over year, like some years, it's next to nothing. And then another years, it's
Yeah.
still at
Well-
under 10%.
I think we should take that up when we have a budget and we can go through the budget.
Yeah.
We're not prepared to talk
Okay.
that extensively
Understood.
on it.
But certainly, that's part of the whole hiring cost discussion that we had before, so departments can understand the entire impact
Mhm.
on the budget, more than just the annual salary.
Well, the other thing is that if there was this escrow fund in the past that was kind of offsetting our increases, then the budgets really don't truly reflect the
Right, the
true
cost.
cost, right? Meaning, if escrow didn't exist, and you were paying 100% of those funds.
I think this is just the nature of insurance rates, I don't know how they.
So you're saying New Hampshire,
This is the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust, this is, every town has a vote in the process, but they have a board of directors and they run. And I don't want to, I'm not that proficient in the area.
Sorry, Linda.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you on
I'm
the
not
spot.
that knowledgeable, I don't like to say the wrong things.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, and at one point, does the FERCog do any of that stuff that we talked about, or can we get, you said it's Hampshire County? that
It's
we-
Hampshire County. The different counties some have their own retirement funds, as we do.
And
Others
yeah, I wonder if we
others
can
are
go to
part of
other
the- what is it,
counties.
GIS, GIC, what is it, GIS?
GSC, something. I don't
Group
know.
insurance?
Group.
Yeah.
There are other, it's not the only one in the
Okay.
state.
Yeah.
Next meeting, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we'll continue to list this, to talk about it, because it is a big ticket item.
It is.
Yeah. Any other things you
Well,
want to?
that's kind of it
those
on
are
the
where you
budget, except that, except, Amy, I do really want to address, I did listen to what you said at select board meeting. We have tremendous
Mhm.
respect for you and for all the work of the finance committee. I've been on it. I started in 1987 and I've been on finance committee if you read.
Yep.
I know what kind of a job it is.
Yep.
But what I want to address is the thought that we just keep expanding the workforce, we got more people and more people, we didn't need to have this kind of position, now we need the position. It only used to take this many people, now it takes this many people. What you're really not taking into account, and it's so important in the town of Hadley, probably in other towns too, is our town was run by the boards and committees for free for so long. I mean, even looking around here, Finance Committee, when I was on, we did the budget. We met with department heads in the evening. We met with them all day long on Saturday. We created the budget. You can't expect, we just don't get that from volunteers at this point. I don't think if that was your job that any of you would be able to take it on with the rest of your lives. So something like that. You were a Park and Rec commissioner, Andy. You ran the Park and Rec, right? You were out there on the fields. You were out there, I think, at the Park and Rec at one point. I think it was when you were on, but certainly at some point when it was Joanne. They ran the programs. They did the registrations. They did everything. That's not what our volunteers do anymore. Our Board of Health, those people did the inspections. They walked into the restaurants and they went to the sewer, did the inspection sites at the construction sites, the sewer,
Septic
I
tanks.
don't know, whatever they did.
Septic.
But they personally did it themselves. You elected someone to a board or they were appointed. They did the work of that department. Assessors did the assessing. The land use boards are the ones that are probably, at this point, Conservation, Planning Board, and Zoning Board, are probably the only three boards that are most like they always used to be, partly because some of them are the same people that they used to be. But they are going to do that as virtual volunteers, which is why that's another position that was put in to sort of step in and make sure we gather that information. So yes, we do have new positions, but then it doesn't exactly translate into this are all the new working hours that we have. What are they all doing? What it is a transition from volunteer working hours, which thank God we had so much of it for so long. But that's just not what volunteers, and probably in your own experiences in your lives, it is very difficult to tap into people for volunteer positions. And I have to say, my initial reaction to it, in the last few years, is what's wrong with people? Why aren't we getting these volunteers anymore? And I don't feel that way anymore because, well, I've got 3 adult children with families. And yeah, I mean, they are just straight out. Life is different than it used to be. And I think now that we have to have that work centralized, it has to be the work that we hire people to do if it's going to get done. And let volunteers be volunteers. Let them come to meetings, let them set policies, let them influence how the town is run. But they're not going to step in and do the jobs. So I just needed, after hearing that, Amy, to really say that we have to pay for work that used to be done for free.
So maybe some of the others don't know. So the other day, because I went to the select board to listen, I went to one of their meetings, so I wanted to listen, but I also did something on the public comment. And my public comment was, back in 2015.
And the public comment was as an individual, though.
As a resident.
As a
As a
resident.
resident.
Right.
As not as the
Right,
finance.
just wanted-
Not as a finance.
Right.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
want to, I think we
Okay.
all want to make
I'm
sure
appealing
whose
to all
voice,
of you and-
whose
Right.
voice.
No, I go up and I gave my name and address. I
Right.
did also state that I was on the
Right.
finance
Sure.
committee. But I started on the finance committee right when Linda left in 2015. So that's when I started on the finance committee. So this is also my experience. So my experience said, well, back then, right when all this was happening, we had a town administrator, we had a town treasurer, and we had an assistant town treasurer. And Joan was like listed as somewhat the assistant town, but she also was all our benefits and payroll at the time. And that's how we ran. And that was about 65 hours. We are now up to, now we're up to, besides for the town administrator, the treasurer, we have a full-time assistant treasurer, we have a full-time HR director, we have a full-time benefits person, and so we have several more people adding to the staff. The actual, our population hasn't grown, it actually decreased just a little bit. We still had Route 9. I was here at the time. This is all the stuff that happened at the time. So we went from 2015, from about 65 hours to 190 hours. It's a large increase. It's a lot. So I asked them to look, and it's not necessarily going up all the way through, and I was a volunteer at the time. And I didn't do the budget at the time, though. David Nixon did the budget at the time. We did have a lot of volunteers, absolutely. I mean, just as we do now with you folks. But what I'm saying is things have changed. You know, there's a lot more regulations involved. I get that, and there is going to be increases, and we did have to make some changes. We have to make some changes with all the unfunded mandates they give us too. Yeah. And there's a lot going on, but it's going up a little fast, a little too fast, and I asked them to take notice of that. That's what I asked them to take notice of. And I have the history, and I can tell them what I've seen, and that's what I've seen. I want to just, since we're on the topic, because I want that they didn't hear what I said because I did it at the select board meeting. But now that we're discussing it, if we jump right to like some of the new hires and the current openings and some of that pay determination that I put on here, one of the questions was how we used to handle our finances here, the town finances. A department wanted an increase. I need more hours for my department. Okay, I remember Mike speaking to him. I want my guy, he's doing this fabulous job. He presented the whole thing. I want him to have I want to give him a promotion. So he budgets for it. You go to the town administrator. The town administrator will work for the annual, starts the budget. And then at that time, we went to all the finance. Finance went through each person, right? And we talked about it. I remember the assessor saying, I need increases. I'm looking for steps. Or we had someone else asking for, I want more hours in different departments. Department heads talked about all their increases. Okay, so I'm just saying there was a process. It went to you as for the annual, it was a process. You then took it to us, it went to select board, and then we had a presented budget and it went to town meeting and voted. Okay, then at that time, after that, we had once in a while, or it was more in the fall, we did the COLAs. If we needed to make a quick adjustment or something came up, we discussed it, and it went to fall special town meeting. This is not what's happening right now. I feel like the budgets are not being stuck to. We gave a budget of X amount of dollars. Let's use HR for an example. This is the HR budget for last year. Well, you've already given more than that for the new person. It's already gone above and beyond. And we're already jumping above, and so let's use, maybe I'll throw out another department, because there's so much changing in these areas, okay, in the town hall. We'll use like maybe even building, okay. You know, if you miss a clerk, you're going to fill in with a clerk, but you can't give them more money than what we've already budgeted for. Like you're asking for all, and the other thing is on this, I feel like it's bad morale when you have someone that gives 26, 28 years, all these years of experience, and they've been there forever and ever and ever. You leave, and then when you leave, we're going to give the next person $10,000 more. And it's happening over and over and over again. I can't believe how many calls all the time, or how many people I talk to that are unhappy with how things are going. These last 2 years are not good. These last 2 years, it's cost us so much money between, all the new unions. This compensation study, I remember I have it showing here when David Nixon asked for it originally in the, in the town meeting and we did for capital expense and gave him $4,000 for that study. Then we're working on it again. And then I have another email here from Linda from 2013 2023 saying in 6 months we should have it. We still don't have the compensation study. And we should have the compensation study, but the problem is this compensation study is causing havoc. It's causing all kinds of issues. You know, I'm not sure what it says or what's in it, but we have people, long-term people that are leaving. We have people all kinds of people retiring. And it's not a good thing that's happening in town. We have a new town HR person. I don't know what her title is or what her position is. What does is she our HR person? Like, is that it? Because,
Who are we talking about, the director?
yeah,
So your HR director is also handles all of the major projects that are going on in town. She's the project manager, project coordinator. That doesn't belong in the HR director's job. I appreciate everything that you're saying. I have a very unique point of view in that I've worked my entire adult life for this town. And I've worked for the police department for 25 years. I've been the chief for 10, and for the last 5 or 6 months, I've been the town administrator. I'm currently doing 2 full-time jobs at a much lower rate than the person who was here before. Linda does 2 full-time jobs. In other towns, the treasurer is not the finance director also. Your town collector handles all of the risk management for this town, all of the insurance claims, all of the injury claims, and all of that. That was added to her plate because the last town administrator couldn't handle those duties. It was just too much to go around. And I can tell you for the last 6 months, handling the town administrator duties without a full-time administrative assistant, without any administrative assistant, is next to impossible. The HR director, what you just asked for, is also, like I said, in charge of handling all of the projects in town. So when there's meetings about the town hall refurbishment, when there's meetings about the DPW building and things like that, she is spreading her time from the HR department, handling every personnel-related issue and problem across all departments except for the schools. She's now handling that as well. Jennifer, out of the town administrator's office, I don't even know what her title is because she has enough jobs that easily could be spread to 2 different people.
now I understand, and we've been, and I'm saying we have great people and we're doing great things. And we've had all those jobs before.
No. You may have had those jobs before, but they weren't being done. They weren't being done properly. This is not the same town that it was 10 years ago. It's not remotely the same town. The population of this town, the people who actually live here, doesn't necessarily have a bearing on the amount of work that has to be done to keep this town moving forward. What was the budget 10 years ago for the total budget for the town? 17, so now we're closer to 25.
Yep.
You know, I know Route 9 was here, but it didn't look like it does right now. There wasn't 100,000 cars driving through here every single day that long ago. So I understand the concern and I understand where you're coming from, but I would caution the critique about too many employees without knowing what their job descriptions are and what their workload is.
Well,
In
we
the
had
5 or 6 months I've been there, I can tell you right now, the vast majority of the people in town hall are overworked. They're doing multiple full-time jobs.
When we started with, we didn't have an HR, we started with an HR, because we found that there was a need to help all those departments, right? So they said, okay, we're gonna start with one, and that first person we started with, and it was about 5 years ago, was at $70,000. We are now at $92,000. That's a 76% increase within 5 years.
Yeah. A lot of the reasoning behind how you have to hire people at higher wages nowadays is twofold.
But this is only within 5 years.
I understand that it seems like it's a lot of money, but 10 years ago, your police department were the lowest paid police officers in the entire state. And that's commensurate with a lot of the other employees in town. We had to do catch-up in a lot of different places, and no one is going to take an HR director position for $75,000 a year. It's running an entire department and dealing with, what do we have, 300 employees in town, 400 if you count the schools? Somewhere around there. 300 different employees' complaints and problems and issues, and negotiating 5 different union contracts and things like that. People don't take jobs for rates like that anymore. So sometimes people have to be hired at a higher rate of pay. I don't know necessarily, before I took over this position, if that was a common practice, but I can tell you from what I've seen so far, when you interview somebody, to use the example that you gave for the HR director, when you set the budget and that person gets hired at a higher rate, yes, the process that you described likely did not happen exactly the same way. But it's also because it happened within a budget cycle. Meaning, had that request been made now, it would have happened this normal way. We have budgets in front of us right now where departments are asking for more hours for their employees. They are asking for additional employees. Those processes that you described will be followed. You will see them if they make it past our review. But a position like the HR director, that happened only a handful of months ago outside of a regular budget cycle. So that same process is impossible to follow. The select board wanted to hire a HR director. People were interviewed for the job. The best person was selected for the job. And that person basically negotiated for what they were willing to take. And if they were not willing to take it, we go down to the next best candidate, or a candidate that we may not have wanted. I mean, that's just part of the game, unfortunately. It's just the way that things work. And I fully understand the concern and the worry there. It is a lot of money. But again, like I said, come in the trenches and I'll show you. Because from what I've seen over the course of the last handful of months, we're not going to get the best people with what we've been offering.
When it comes to the salaries, is it, with all the employees, is there a base, like a minimum of saying, okay, every single year everybody's getting a 1.5% raise, a 2% raise? Because also, I can agree to her looking at some things, and I'm looking, it's like, okay, the same position, they had a 3% raise. The following year, they had over a 10% raise. Same position, nothing much has changed, but they were getting a 10% raise for that position.
I mean, I can't answer,
I mean, that's
unless you can give me specifics of what you're talking about.
I don't have the book in
might be able
front
to
of me,
investigate it, but I can tell you that as we stand right now, one of your agenda items is inquiring about union negotiations. They are actively ongoing. We have 5 unions to negotiate outside of the schools. The schools handle their own unions, and so yes, there are specific numbers. They're generally 3-year contracts, and there's specific numbers for each year of the contract. And those will carry across to the municipal people, will carry across to the municipal employees as well. So if they negotiate a 2% increase for the first year in FY26, that's the increase. It's 2%. If want to let me know the specific person you're talking about, I might be able to figure out why that happened, why somebody got such a big raise.
Yeah, I don't have that book in front of me.
I
but
don't,
can
you know, I
actually
can't
get that.
be specific, but I can tell you that, and Linda, you know, she's worked in town hall many years. There is a likelihood that if a raise that size was added to someone's salary, they probably just got handed a major job to do on top of what they already do.
Or certifications or some type of other, you know, level,
Right.
different level of skill level of taking on some other responsibility. Just because job descriptions don't change, that doesn't mean that other things get passed on with people. And and I just want to say that the thing is that I understand this town, you know, as a resident and also as a commercial, you know, real estate owner in this town. You know, I don't look at this town it's not a town of 5,000 residents. It's a town with hundreds of millions of dollars of commercial real estate, like substantial, that most towns are envious of what we have. But we have to still service everything that goes on Route 9. That still has to, and with the 100,000 cars comes tens of thousands of people that are in our town using our services, doing all of those things. And that takes infrastructure and capacity. And the fact is just because something was done a certain way or was said to be done a certain way, doesn't mean that we shouldn't move to a more professional way of managing the way that the town operates. We need to go and stop thinking that this is a farm that you're doing, you know, you're sowing the fields and you're doing all this stuff. Even they are modernizing, they have different equipment, there's all these other things that are they're moving forward. Things aren't done even on farmland that they were done back then. And it costs money. It's more expensive. But we should be careful on, especially when we sit on a public board, on what we say and how we approach that. I don't disagree with everything you're saying. What I'm saying, but my point is that I think as somebody like Linda who's been here and Mike, we have to be careful and respect the efforts they're putting in and not paint a broad brush and say that there's all of these issues, when we should really do a better analysis saying, you know, like Peter pointed out, why was certain things elevated for this point, and really do an investigation and understand what the background was before we go and kind of say certain things.
That's the compensation study, right?
Well, whatever it is, I don't, if the compensation study, I don't have the details behind it. I don't know, you know, when it was issued, why it's not done. All of those questions are not, I guess, not my purview right now. But if it's an issue that we do have, and it should have been completed whenever there was a date, you know, we can ask why hasn't it? You know, it's a good question. I don't disagree
I
with
mean,
you.
there's an analysis base that we can use as a basis to make a lot of these decisions.
Yeah.
So
So I didn't want to interrupt, but I saw on the agenda that you had the employee compensation study. I brought a copy for everyone of the actual compensation study.
Right.
And I brought the originally set wage scale, which is currently in effect. And obviously this will change with union negotiations and all that stuff. So I have that for everybody. I hope it gives you some insight as to what the
Great.
select board decided. I can't tell you what the delay was. I don't know. I came in right at the very end.
Well, it was
of
way before you. I mean, it
Yeah.
didn't happen, a lot of this stuff when I'm talking about it, this isn't something that happened, you're just picking up the pieces on all this stuff, so I'm
Just trying to
not,
move the ball forward.
you're just trying to move the ball forward, but
I thought you were just
when
trying to keep
I,
it from going backwards, actually.
a lot of this stuff is all done, it's not your area, it is more through select board or more of all the meetings after the select board.
Right.
Everything's taking effect.
Right.
So you weren't even part of where we were doing in the process in which we were increasing budgets,
Right.
right? That wasn't you.
Well, I was asking for it, I was the one that was,
You were
I
asking,
was
you,
asking the
you,
police department, I was increasing it.
no, but you were doing it, and
But I got
that's
cut a lot,
what,
Linda cut me down a lot.
yeah, you were asking,
It's
you
tough.
brought it to
It's
us,
the game.
then the increase went
Right.
through.
Right, I remember the process that you described exactly. When you walked through it just a moment ago, I remember being there as a brand-new chief going, wow, this is rigorous. I gotta get past Linda, I gotta get past David Nixon, then I gotta get past FinCom, and then I gotta get past both boards at the same time type of situation.
Yep.
And so,
And meeting.
sometimes I won and sometimes I lost, but it was a very, and that's what I said at the fall town meeting. I wanted people to understand that the capital process to request capital items is very rigorous, similar to the budget process as well. And I wanted people to understand that it's not just an easy thing to just snap your fingers and you get a new FTE.
Right.
So when I was going and talking about some of this, and I'm sorry, I don't want to make you think that it's an attack or anything.
no,
I
no.
wanted to bring a concern.
Yeah.
So, the concern is it's not being followed the same way. We talked for a long time about an HR, and we finally did it, but that went through a process.
Right.
We talked a long time about a town planner. We've been talking whether we want it or whether we don't. It's through a process. And now job descriptions and things are changing in executive sessions in the middle of the terms, and it's not the same process. We used to have executive sessions maybe 5 times a year. Now they have executive sessions every other week.
Well, there's pretty much, you're right, there's a standing executive session to discuss basically any union updates, any issues with the compensation study, because the compensation study was being discussed pretty much every other week because there was little issues, little tweaks that they wanted to make throughout the process. And when I came in, I basically had to write a couple of different policies to complete it, just so we could get it released. So yeah, you're right, they're on there a lot, and it wasn't a small lift either. I know that the report is only, or the study itself is only a handful of pages long, but my understanding is that this was a pretty significant undertaking by the board. Whether or not people agree with it, whether or not people like it, whether or not it's causing problems, like you mentioned, I can't speak to. I know that there's always gonna be, this, when people see this person's making this much money, I'm making this much money. And I don't feel like you meant that for me, so I appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that, but I want to make sure that you understand that I'm not trying to defend me or town hall or anything. I just wanted to echo what was said earlier in that, the broad brush comment, let's really let's be finite about what we're talking about. And if there are places that we can make adjustments, then we can certainly talk about it. But like I said, from what I see over at Town Hall in particular, and I've gotten to know intimately a lot of the other departments as well, I just see a lot of really hard-working people that are probably taking on more than their fair share of what they really should be doing. And so that's the only reason I wanted to make that.
Oh, I totally
distinction.
think hardworking people, and that's why I'm saddened when I feel like we're I don't know, when there's issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I understand that, especially your other issue where somebody leaves and then we hire somebody else at a higher rate. I completely understand how that could be an issue. I've seen it happen time and time and time again.
But it's happening in private industry as well.
It's usually 20%.
Yeah, it's
In
just.
private industry,
It's
it's
just,
Yeah,
it's
almost
the
any job
workforce.
I've ever left, I know the next person's is, even contracted work like I do.
It's
I
not
know the next
necessarily,
person's gonna work.
it's not necessarily the entity, it's the workforce that has changed. They're just not willing to accept.
and municipal hiring is very difficult. I was speaking with some ex-legislators, and they were even saying the same thing. Just,
Yeah.
it's very hard for towns and governments to hire right now. nobody wants to work with, because of issue. I think we know the environment, some of the environment isn't the best, so it's really hard to get people to be excited. And we've seen it in some of these, what is it, East Hampton had one person running for their, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like.
Well, I mean, we have boards that have weekly meetings, and if they don't have a weekly meeting, they have things in between that they have to do, planning, and particularly, I think, is very, and the school committees, these are all volunteers. It's a tremendous burden to take on. And I know just the little time I have to put in, to be on this committee has sometimes been problematic for me.
And then you all take on at least another committee,
Right,
serve on the
and we're
council as
doing,
well. More is
I had a few
expected.
years I couldn't do it.
Once we get our hands on a volunteer, we find more things
Right.
for them to do because.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who live in this town that care about this town, and
Right.
all of us here, I think, are in that category.
But
And
change is difficult.
change is difficult, yeah.
Right.
And a lot of people in town hall are people who live
Yeah.
here and they're there because they care about the place. And
And I think it's important that at town hall that we support, they do care, and when they do come out to volunteer, we want them to be there. The whole time I served on the finance committee, we never had we didn't have the treasurer there, and the town administrator showed up once a year or so. We really handled, and so when I was on with David, and that's about when you started, and I think we had a clean sweep at that point, didn't we?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah, you
gosh,
had come off and there was all brand new people.
Everybody was left,
Yeah.
had left, and so it was a new board, and David went in, so we're gonna have to tell them what to do, we're gonna train them and give them the background, and I made up my mind at that point, even, before I took on any of the other financial manager parts, that I will liaise with the finance committee because I know what it's like to try and get information, not know who to get it from, or to be stonewalled, whatever, but I would want to be there to connect with and provide whatever information it is that the finance committee wanted, or could explain things that were going on. And I think, and then we've never stopped that, and I think you've had a lot of participation from both of us, and whoever, Carolyn was at a lot of the town administrator meetings, David was at, finance, and so was David before that, and I hope you find it helpful, but I think we all, it doesn't help if we're not on the same page, and we don't have to agree on everything, but it doesn't help that we start working against each other in any way, we want to at least stay in touch.
Mhm.
So I think that and other boards in town, or other people in town, I think it's important that we support the volunteers.
Could we ask, and I don't know where to find it, for anybody that's paying attention or watching or anything like that, where on I know that all the minutes are done for executive session, where do you find those?
Are you asking specifically for this?
No, for just whatever executive session there's, and most
So
people, if they're
the
curious.
minutes,
they
the
can-
way that they had set up their protocols was that they would release the minutes quarterly, because I guess there's a lot of work that has to go into it. What the protocol is, and I just finally learned what the steps they take are. The minutes are collected by Jennifer. She brings them to executive session for the board to review and vote to release. They then go to town council, who redacts as appropriate, and then they go on to an agenda item, and they're all just released at the same time quarterly. The ironic thing that you're asking, and that we're talking about the classification study, is that many of the minutes that there was discussion for this are actually on the next select board meeting. So on the February 5th meeting, there is a quarter's worth of executive session minutes, and much of their discussions about this are in those minutes.
So where do you find, so some of them in the past, maybe years, last year or whatever,
Yep.
where do you find them?
If you go on board docs, where the select board, where the select board agendas are,
Mhm.
not the link agenda that just brings up, just like a spreadsheet or Adobe, you have to go into board docs.
Yep.
And then just go to the search tab and search for whatever
Executive
executive
session?
session minutes, and if you put dates in there, what'll happen is it'll search for a little bit, and it'll bring up little boxes of the meetings that hit your search terms, and then you just go to each one, scroll down, find that agenda that you're looking for, and off you go.
Okay, great. I just didn't know where
I thought they
to
were
find.
on the select board site.
I didn't, I saw regular minutes, but I don't, the regular minutes are, we're on,
Yeah.
we're being filmed,
I think
just
the
like
regular
ours.
minutes
So
are
I don't really care, it's the
different.
executive session minutes
Okay.
where we don't know what,
Right.
because that's not being filmed.
Right.
So that's where I
That's
was wondering where you can
the best way
find
that I know
it.
how to find them. I'll ask Jennifer tomorrow if there's an easier way, and
Okay.
I'll get back to you, but if there is an easier way, I'll let you know. But
Thank you.
I know that I've searched for them that way, because I needed to find some at one point, and that's how I found it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's item 2, we're done.
Let's go to, if we can go back up to 3, potential new revenue sources such as housing, new businesses, fiber, solar. If anybody else has something to add to any of those, please jump in. The one thing I did want to add to that one is on the fiber, I would like to, Alex and I would like to get on the agenda for the select board
Okay?
to request a task force for broadband fiber.
Got it.
So we did some research on it, and I've done some research, Alex has done quite a bit of research. I think we're we're ready to start a committee. Just because I've worked on it, I would love to represent finance on that committee, and hope that you would consider me to be the representation from finance. And we would probably want, just like the other committees, some representation from the town.
5 to 7?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay?
A couple people that I think would be great. I would really like to, Alex has a lot to say about it. He's done all the research. Whether or not Mike Spanknable wants to be a part, because he has dealt with the fiber,
Okay.
but he has a lot also on his plate.
Yep.
And the other last person I would really like to see on there, and she expressed interest, I talked a lot with Sue Glowatsky.
Okay.
Because it would be more of, this would be turning into an enterprise fund. And
Okay.
I think that knowing enterprise funds and that kind of stuff, she would have a lot of helpful information
Okay, great.
on how that worked.
And if I could add too, if you've read the draft, I'm not sure, you have the draft, If you read the draft, there are opportunities, or there's good information in the draft about our current broadband situation and where we can improve it too.
Okay.
So it's, there are, it's not like we're starting from scratch, but we are starting from scratch, but we're coming in with almost a game plan.
So this is a significant potential revenue
It
source
could be,
in the
yeah,
future?
absolutely.
I'm not saying it's significant and it will take time, but it is a nice service to provide, because once again, just like solar, you have to put the infrastructure in,
Yeah.
and it's gonna take time to get your money back. Here, there will be infrastructure that will need to take place,
Right.
but according to other towns, yes, you get your money back, and it's a great thing to offer all residents and businesses.
People want another people have spoken in town, they want another option, and we can't get that with a private ISP. Comcast, like I've told, like we've heard from our cable renewal from last March, Comcast is not gonna come and compete with Charter. They're just
Right.
not going to. That's how the cable industry's become. Comcast and Spectrum are the two biggest players, and they're not going to compete with each other. And that's just reality.
Okay. I will put that on for you, I'll let you know. I'm gonna guess, maybe, 19th, February 19th.
Thank
You ready?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Do we have anything else we'd like to add? Was anybody else that they could?
We're on the solar committee, the first meeting is next week, on the
Okay.
5th. So that, we just decided on that, I believe. So that's, let you guys know how that goes.
Great, thank you.
Housing, I just know from, obviously, the North Hadley project, or the North Maple Street.
North Maple Street.
Mhm.
North Maple Street. That's all I know of.
Yeah, so that is something, the housing, just because I've been going through, I've been on the finance for so long, I've been through a lot of these meetings. And at one point, there was a while where we kept getting addressed that be careful, our sewer is at almost capacity, which was about, they said, if I remember correctly, capacity means about 80%. And so we were almost at something like that 80%. And I remember, I believe it was especially around the time of the Dion's trying to put that project in before a lot of this was being said. And I feel like I've asked the question a couple times, but they said, that's fine, that's fine. If we're adding in all these new housing developments, I don't really not sure if that's fine. So I kinda down the road would like to understand what has happened. Did we lose, what is the big change in DPW in our sewer? Is there a big change? I don't know. There was such a worry about it before, and the worry seems to be gone, and I just don't know. And so that would be my question, is what's been the change? Do you
And
know?
At least a number to validate to say what percentage are we at for sewer right now, because if it is North Maple, and would they say between potential 30 to 50 houses?
Yeah, I'm
Is
guessing,
that what?
I'm gonna guess it's gonna be closer to 50, somewhere around 55, somewhere
So
around there.
it'd
Right,
be
so
just
it's
nice to
something
know
to
to
look at.
validate what percentages are we actually running at for that, adding this, because then there's more expenses, or is there things that we can
Sure.
do or should do?
And this is going back a bit, when we were talking about maintaining extra capacity on the DPW site for an additional container
Flow.
tank, in the event that we needed to expand our processing capacity. And while that is set aside, I do remember there was some pushback saying, well, given the advances in water savings, produced, we're no longer replacing toilets that used to be 5-gallon way back when, the rates are 1.2 now.
But you just
That
flushed
will-
twice.
Yeah.
Because of
When they
those type
first
of
came-
toilets.
Now, the new ones are fine.
So, the point is that conservation efforts have been having an effect that have slowed down our trajectory on that approach. Now, I would certainly can ask the DPW director where we're at with that now. And this is just conjecture, and I'm not sure the entire accuracy of it, but I do remember there was discussion about a project in that area, a little farther north, that they were talking about possibly pushing towards Amherst.
I was just gonna say that,
Yeah.
I recall that exact same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
I think that
getting-
was what,
There were meetings.
Amherst has
Slow
capacity,
concern.
and they were talking, and because of the gravity and UMass there was talk of
yeah.
going that way with one of the projects as well. But
But I don't think
At
they
what
did
cost?
that, right?
But we're,
Yeah, that was-
Because they're going to Amherst.
That was
You know, what
that was the
costs
same
there.
project, because
was-
they're below.
right, but.
They
yeah.
would they're gonna need a
Pump
pump,
system.
I believe.
So-
Okay, but it wouldn't be a bad idea anyway for the town,
Yeah.
looking at potential capital costs in the next, could be 5, 20 years, to know where we are at capacity with as we're doing with our water system, with new tanks and so on. It wouldn't be a bad idea to just do whatever committee does that, to just do a report on what our current capacity is, what's the projected increase or decrease, or where it's gonna go, and then based on that, whether we need to start planning for an additional settling tank or bubbling system, whatever it is that we're gonna need if we need to expand our services.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
and Amy's right, I mean, I do remember that it was 10 to 15 years ago, there was a lot of concern that we were gonna blow through
Mhm.
our capacity, and so there was all this discussion
Yeah.
about maintaining an extra space for that
Yeah.
third.
Yeah, the over 55 project, I remember the whole Amherst situation, but it doesn't answer your question.
Well, they were gonna go there, but they didn't.
Right.
So so that was the question I had brought up, because
Exactly.
they
Good-
originally
good
were,
point.
said they were gonna go.
Right.
And then it said no.
I don't, yeah, I mean, whether they were going to, whether they do or not, I still don't think it answers your question about
No.
the totality of the capacity. So
Yeah,
what I'll do is I mean, unless Andy, if you wanna ask him, I could shoot him an email and just say, hey, would you mind, either putting an email together to.
Oh, it's fine.
whatever, something
Just
like
down the road, that would be a question when we're talking about housing
Got it.
and new business and new
Mhm.
things like that. The other thing, if you're gonna ask them a question, if you don't mind, or maybe you do know, where do we stand with the water tanks?
With the water tanks.
It's a great application.
I mean,
We did a big
We're replacing
thing,
the tank.
replacing the tanks.
project?
What's that?
That I don't know.
It's
That
a
was-
replacement.
I will
that was
have to-
last
For the
year?
Replacement, yeah.
Yeah, I will have
With
to
the
ask.
glass system, it's assembled.
Yeah.
and it's
What was it,
glass.
over $1 million? It was, or several million,
Yeah.
several
Okay.
million.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and, well, we were expecting a grant, or hoping to have a grant, so I think that we were going to go through a grant process first.
Right,
I think it was a $9 million project, which we were
Yeah.
hoping to fund at $6 million.
right,
Right.
that's right.
And then there was gonna be an overlap of 1 year in the water.
That was going to be 6 or 27, then it was going to, yeah, but it was, which was, at the time, we thought, and I'd have to look at it again, was going to be sufficiently covered by balance in the enterprise funds for the water. So, even though we'd be paying, finishing up Callahan Wells and starting the new one, there would
Yeah.
be that 1 year out overlap. And then
Maybe
we'd
we
be
can,
able to cover it
just
forward.
when we're talking
Yeah.
about things, just revisit and just take us, just because that was last year's, and that was a big project and a big thing. We want to see where that stands. That would be,
I will add that,
Nice.
I'll add that to my email to him tomorrow. We'll see if we can get a correct answer for you.
great.
But you talk about expanding revenue.
Yeah.
Certainly, if the housing project is one aspect. What efforts are there beyond, being passive in this, is there for expanding revenue?
As far as housing goes, or as far as new business goes?
Just increasing our tax and levy,
Oh, you're talking about an override?
Well, other than that, I mean, you have is there new commercial projects coming down the road, or there?
Well, I'm not sure. Dan used to tell us about a bunch of them that were coming at some times, but I'm not sure of what's coming right now. I mean, I know that there are some new stuff coming. I mean, we just saw that Chase had just probably gonna open any time now. We have the Jersey Mike's. We have the Chicken Place, another new restaurant there that's open. I went to the open house for the first time for Skinny Pancake today with the chamber.
Without getting too much into the weeds of the budget, one of the budget meetings we did have recently was with the building inspector, and his revenues over, more than 6 months of the year are slightly higher than they were at this point last
Mhm.
year. We can't say whether or not they'll continue to follow that same track, but, they're in good shape as far as that's concerned. And that includes all of those.
Those are the ones I
all
can
of
visually
those-
see.
All of those revenues are in, so, any additional would have to be brand new that we aren't aware of yet.
I-
We usually talk about those things we have I think every 2 weeks, we have a project coordination meeting where we'll talk about new businesses, new things going on in town and things like that, so
Yeah.
I can keep my ears open for anything that.
Sometimes when I watch the
that
planning
pop
board,
up.
I hear it too.
Yeah.
That's where I get some of my
Yeah,
information.
usually they'll come up at project coordination first, and then they'll go to the planning board, because it's usually it's a meeting just to kind of bat things around and make sure that proper permits and applications have been submitted to the right departments and things.
Yeah.
So,
I'm guessing probably, I know it's not new, it's the same, it's still a dealership, but because they're building, it's probably more revenues. It's the police, that's the Steve Lewis
Yep.
building.
yeah.
Okay.
And then the solar, that's down the road, obviously, a little ways before you start bringing anything in, even if the town decides to go down that road. But that's all I'm aware of as far as,
The
you
business?
said, rather than sitting passively by.
I mean, I think the only other thing you can do is look at what has not come to town because they haven't even been able to meet our zoning rules and regs for either location, size and such, and look at that in terms of lost opportunities, that do we want to look at some of our rules and regs in that regard to loosen those things up or to make them more attractive to certain types of businesses that are going to go to another town?
Well, there's, I think, the Jim on the planning board did have something where they're gonna expand the footprint to 75,000 square feet. I think that was in the town.
From 75, wasn't it?
Well, up to,
Or up
from
to-
75
okay.
or,
Yeah,
yeah, I forget
yeah.
what it was. That
I
was
think
last
like
week.
150.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, there may be other types of situations that we have
Mhm.
where people have said, yeah, I'd like to do this here, and we go, well, it's not allowed because it's only, 300 feet back, or it's only 100 feet back, or whatever.
You can't
And
put
these
more
are
than
things
2
that,
stories.
right, and these are things that maybe we want to look at because costs are just going to keep going up.
Well, we lost a building, right? The Chinese immersion school just bought a building on Venture Bay.
Yeah, but that's going to be nonprofit, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying, but
Yeah.
that's coming off the tax
Yeah,
roll.
that's right. Yeah.
So we're
So,
gonna keep the same one on Route 9?
No idea.
I think so. I think that's an expansion. They're growing.
yeah, but I mean, that's the kind of thing that I think strategically, maybe a long-term planning
I'd love to see
kind
a
of
list.
group to talk about that, maybe
I'd
bring
love
in.
to see a list of businesses that we may have lost
Yeah.
because they can't build.
They just can't build, and whether we, in looking at them now, whether we would want to look at making a change to our zoning regs to allow different types of businesses that we've turned down in the past, today we'd say, yeah, we'll take them. Sorry we lost that. Anyway, something maybe the planning board would want to do, and I don't know, the select board would want to set up with some members of the public as well. That's something I would be open to being on, especially if it meets during the day.
Got it.
Okay.
Sure, Bill, they were talking about bringing something to the next town meeting, right? Is that what the changes, the zoning change, the size of the buildings?
I think they were gonna do some, maybe for the next town
Later,
meeting, yeah,
annual or
yeah.
fall. Yeah, so they're working on something to bring to town meeting.
Yeah, I think that's already in the works. I know Jim and the board have recognized that, and they're working towards
Reducing the size?
increasing, just changing some of the regulations to be more, I guess, friendly to whatever is interested in town.
All I can say is, thank goodness we built the library and the senior center when we did, even with the roof problems.
If we live.
So do you want to go and talk about the library?
Is that the segue?
No,
Was that the
we're
segue?
skipping one. We gotta do
No, we
the
gotta-
DPW.
You know,
DPW.
some of these things, if we're gonna talk about some of these things, we should really invite people that can speak more, I guess, onto the details. Because some of this stuff,
Yeah.
Well, I don't really know if there's a lot of stuff.
Well,
I don't know anything about it.
well, the thing is that if there is concerns financially, then I guess we should give whoever those individuals are responsible for, that we should get an update for them. If we determined that there's a financial.
If there's a concern. There may not be any concerns. I mean,
And that's the thing, putting it on the agenda without really any data supporting it being on the agenda.
well, I
sometimes
have to put it on the agenda because otherwise I can't talk about it. And if I could ask, I mean, sometimes.
Well, if we're gonna talk about it, we should have the subject matter expert at our meeting, instead of us talking about something that we don't really know about.
So I thought Michael might know of, it might be just litigation and it's not something we can talk about. Maybe it is done. Maybe, I have no idea where we stand with that.
So what I can tell you about the roof itself, the roof situation, is that we have a meeting set for tomorrow.
Okay.
The Gale report is done, and I think you all have probably seen it because it's been done, it's been presented twice, once at select board and once at the library trustees meeting. Same report, same presentation both times. Once the report was completed, I kind of spoke to several different people, trustees as well as select board rep, and we are going to meet tomorrow. We're going to have our town council there to talk about next steps. I will have more on that probably after that meeting. Patrick will be there, Lynn Latham will be there. I think she's chair of the trustees, I'm not sure. So there will be, all the shot callers, so to speak, will be in the same room together. And my hope, my goal at the end of that meeting will be to have some actionable next steps. But as
So-
we stand right now,
If I leave this on the agenda as we keep going, if you have information to give us, we would appreciate it, but if you feel that there should be more information or we need more, I would be happy to invite Patrick.
yeah,
It's not that I want to exclude him, I just don't know
yeah,
that
Sure.
it's something that, I'm just asking where we stand.
absolutely. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's more than welcome, if he has more details on something, but if it's just something that is at a meeting and you give us the update, that's great. I know we have the DPW expert here.
I wouldn't call myself an expert on it. But we did just have a meeting a few minutes prior to this one. So everything's kind of fresh. We had a presentation by Helene Carl and Associates of 3 different plans, one of which was everything that we want or that we would ask for, and then 2 steps down in size. The committee had some discussion about some of the specifics regarding each plan, and we've asked the consultant to go back and prepare 2 different numbers for us, one of which would be a 4th reduction in size. So each plan was, everything you want, and then chop off a maintenance bay, and then reduce the overall footprint with a reduced maintenance bay. And one will be cutting down the storage space a little bit more. Currently, the prices that they're quoting per square foot, roughly $750 per square foot. And this is, with radiant heating, with all of the code that applies for the DPW, municipal building. Soft costs are estimated at 25%, and there is a 5 to 7% unknown contingency gap that we're dealing with. So we could all do the math, but the goal of the committee is to come in under 20 million.
What's the latest chop down of square footage?
So the one that we're looking at, there is a 23,200 square foot, which you need to do the math, it's 18.5.
Got it.
And that's before soft costs and the unknown. So, and there's potential of pulling out the fuel island, which is 650,000 roughly, and staging that first to actually reduce the overall cost of the project, because we need the fuel island, we don't have one. Salt shed is its own, could be considered its own animal too. Whether or not there's economies of scale doing it at the same time, and that's another 600,000.
Are
Just cite that separately.
Are the tanks, are we going to above ground or below?
These would be above ground with containment, and now it's 4,000 gallons, but honestly, I'm not clear if that was 1 or 2.
Okay.
I missed the first part of that.
Okay.
No, is that with
Have to have two.
having 2 stories still?
No, so the benefit of having purchased the adjacent property,
That's what I was wondering, are we gonna be using that for, you know, showers, office, break rooms, using that and cutting that down to being a single level facility instead of using 2 because you needed the second floor, needing an elevator for break rooms, showers, offices?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because the elevator itself, the cost of the elevator we were talking about before, more than offsets the cost of purchasing that additional land in that.
And then the yearly maintenance and inspections.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and yeah, you get rid of, we're able to do this all at a single level program. That's not to say there isn't a mezzanine storage, but it isn't that you'd have office space. You'd have office space would be all on one level. And, you know, there isn't a long-term plan to use the house that is there, but they're leaving the storage garage that is in the far corner there. Having toured the house myself, I don't really see a benefit for the town trying to utilize it anyway.
You couldn't cut it down, spend $1 million, add an addition to it, offices, break rooms, showers, be done, separate that building from the actual maintenance building?
To be clear, we're talking about if
I'm just thinking outside, I've never seen it,
on
I'm
the
just
lot.
thinking outside, using the space to separating the offices from the garage to, like you said, using as much as we can as to, you know, knocking the house down and then putting expansions onto that property, or using the house?
There's a lot of real structural issues with that.
Yes, it's in rough shape.
Oh, is
It
it?
is, yeah, there's places where these sister floor joists, and, you know, where
Where's the
the
permit
floor
for that?
joist doesn't
Shouldn't have
quite
been
make it to the
I'd like to see the
support
permit.
beam. You know, you call it a 2x8, but it's really, you know.
So part of the thoughts would be as to knocking this down
Um,
and using the land for whatever.
Well, using the land
To keep it
allows
from-
us to not
keep it
have
one
to
story.
not do a 2-story
So it's a-
Yep,
garage
oh yeah,
program.
gotcha.
So that gets rid of the elevator right
Gotcha,
there.
yep.
Also, this plan also maintains the existing garage building
Mhm.
for storage, and, you know, lawnmowers and plows, and right now there's also.
They're already using it, right?
They are, yeah, and the plan would be to use that in the interim, but also to maintain that and do some repointing and then painting. The building committee put a lot of work to keep that building up to snuff, where the eaves are all aluminum clad. Heating system's been upgraded. There's been a lot of improvements to that building. And the electrical doesn't really, if you don't move it, you don't touch it, it's still grandfathered. So we wouldn't have to address that. So the plan would be to keep that building and use it in part of the program going forward. But
Put a metal roof on it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, and, you know, there was a lot of discussion today to ensure, you know, the heating system. The building would probably mostly be insulated metal panel with, you know, concrete pointing walls, taking insulation down below grade. Again, radiant heat in the floor of the whole place. You don't have to heat the building. It's the most cost-effective way to do that. Using, you know, DFR for the
Offices,
for the
yep.
offices, yeah.
Waste oil for the heat for the radiant, or what were they planning on using for that?
That was going to be part of the VFR, or a separate, they're going back, excuse me, let me back up on that. There's discussion on whether or not you're going to do either heat pump or
Propane?
propane, or, you know, there's certainly natural gas is out of the question down there. So, you know, propane or, yeah, that would be it, because heating oil is not going to be an option there. So, and there's, you know, the discussion is, you know, what's practical versus what, you know, what does the town want? And so the committee is having, we have, you know, just got all this presentation, we haven't had the discussion, but we're leaning towards the practical side of things rather than attempt to have that building be a net zero building. Yeah, so we cut off a bay, we cut back on the program itself, and we're meeting again on the 12th to get harder numbers.
What is it?
The reduced program.
On the soft cost, how is the fee structure? Is it based on the construction costs, or, because they're saying 25%, but how are they? I know some architects, they do it as a percentage of the construction costs.
Yes.
Is that what?
I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% positive on the soft cost.
Okay. We typically don't do that. Just say, we never do that. We usually have it separate on time and material for that, not going into what the construction costs are gonna be. I don't know if that's negotiable or not.
Yeah, today was mostly a presentation, so we'll have a little bit more discussion about the harder numbers when we get them in.
Because that seems like a lot for an 18,000 square foot building, for 20,000 square foot.
We started off with a 28.5 1,000 square foot building, and a few of the different cuts, again, 27.2, 24.4, and then 23.
Do they plan on putting every piece of equipment in this garage for this size of the building? Which I know part of it is gonna be offices and.
The smaller program won't fit everything,
Okay.
but this is based on our fleet, but the pickups would be outside, and of course, where we have the other building, we can try to muster some of that as well. The pole barn's going away, would go away if town meeting approves this.
Are you looking to do it this, for the spring annual town meeting?
Yes, I mean, we've spent $235,000.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, for the, for this study, I would hate to see this be another missed opportunity here where, we shelve it, and then the numbers go stale, code changes, and it's just wasted money.
Inflation, price goes up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When you
I
pay
mean-
somebody to do the whole thing, yeah.
I said it before, and I don't mean to be flippant, but, building costs are never cheaper than they are today. They're not going down.
They're not going down.
So annual is what you're thinking of, not special, not the fall town.
Correct,
Annual, okay.
for May.
Right.
So there is going to be, we've already had the open house. The push would be then educating the public on what the program is. Hopefully we can get that information out there once the program is established. And then after we meet on the 12th, the next meeting would be presentation would be towards the select board the following week, and then finance committee the week after that.
The work that they've already done with the plans, do we own the plans?
Yeah,
We own the plans.
Can we shop
So-
it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know where we're at with that.
because if we own the plans, we can shop it.
Yeah, and this is not this is a concept plan, not the full-on, this is enough to get us to a good number. This was not a full-on, 100%
We own it.
schematic. Yeah.
That's with those fuel pumps and the tanks that are there. Have they been removed?
The tanks are out of the ground.
Oh, they are, so everything's all out, it's all clean.
Yep.
Yeah. So right now, we're running on a card system.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. So
Expensive.
Scott was asked to do a study so we can figure out, what the cost-benefit analysis on running the card and how long to justify potentially separating that part of the project out.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna find that the card system, we can't get as good of a discount going through the card system unless we really shop it around. So it's gonna be a matter of, like you said, they're gonna have to do a cost benefit to see.
Just from an
If we go above ground and, I honestly, I think that was my hope for the plan the whole way, as opposed to repairing those tanks or replacing them or whatever, because you couldn't, that was a horrible idea to put something new back in the ground and then have to take it out again once we're building a new building. So-
Well, and this would be citing it in the place, in the program. where
Right,
it would
right,
go.
exactly. In a much better location.
Right.
Yeah.
And an offhanded comment that was made implied that the discounts on using the gas card is very minimal.
Oh, yeah, no, that's not good. It's not good at all. We were, you know, there was a deep discount when we were going, you know, off rack price, I believe is what it's called. But, you know, unfortunately, we had to make that decision. So.
And certainly, you know, you could think of scenarios when the pumps would be down, you know, if it was a snowstorm and the vendor lost power. I mean, there was another place, you know, nearby that we can get some fuel, but.
There's plenty of contingency plans out there for some.
Last scenarios.
My goodness, we have the emergency queue there right now for the same situation. There's no reason we couldn't just keep it.
Kind of off topic, but it's on topic about the DPW. Since we had a town vote for this excavator with all the implements, and we have this New Holland that was out for repair, and I know it's been used, because I saw them mowing the ditches this fall across from Sunrise Drive. Are we planning on getting rid of this thing? Because the whole concept or the whole presentation was that the machine was too old and you can't get parts. So if it goes like that, then if it's up and repaired, why not get rid of something that's runnable? I don't know if there's a website to local municipalities for selling equipment. I don't know what you do with your cruisers that are expired.
Yeah, it's not
After so many
municipal.
hours or miles to say, okay,
Process.
you know, to having a, well, what if we bought this excavator for digging, all these other things and for mowing, and I know it was, a new mower was gonna cost like 200,000, but if the vote was to buy this excavator in replace of this, we should be getting rid of that New Holland.
Okay, by the Volvo again?
I don't think they've got it yet.
But I mean, when they get it, I mean,
That's the
they're not gonna be, you know,
He's
doing
gonna
any
surplus it
ditches
out.
until,
Yeah.
they're not doing any ditches until late fall anyway,
Right.
because of the flooding. But I'm just saying that has there been a plan to saying, okay, let's not use it, I know it's been used, let's not keep it as a, well, what if?
They routinely offload their old equipment.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
Scott
didn't
said he
know
was
if
gonna
that's
do that.
something
Yeah,
that's in the
part of it
plans
said
of
he was
doing
gonna
that
get
because
scrapped.
of what we spent.
We don't touch on that on the DPW construction committee, but I think if I recall correctly from Scott's presentation at town
Yeah,
meeting,
he was gonna
it
surplus
was
it.
that, you know,
Okay.
yeah, when
He
they're
was very
done
clear
with
about
it,
that.
it's gonna go.
Yeah. And
Because
he's,
they can't get parts for it.
and I've asked him a couple times if the new machine has come in, and he said, no, we're still negotiating a few things with some of the attachments, to make sure they're exactly what we want. And I know he's been diligent in that, because there's a couple of those machines in some local towns, and I know they've gone over to, I think, West Hampton has the machine.
Williamsburg has got a bigger one too.
Okay, yeah, and they've been checking out and then making final decisions, and
Mhm.
it's, you know, I think that's good. We didn't just like, you know, okay, we got the money, let's just buy it, instead
Right.
of tweaking it a little bit if needed, and, you know, the money is the money, you know. That's my understanding. I think I talked to him, been just before New Year's. Because I wanted to come see the thing.
All right, so just looking down here, I just put school there in case you had anything, but I don't know of anything that's happening with the schools, with the stuff. I know that it was in the
Geothermal?
newspaper with the locker rooms.
I don't have any information on the locker rooms. I can tell you that the school has been having meetings about looking into geothermal.
Okay.
For their school grounds. They discussed it at their school committee meeting, which you can watch. They had a company come in and kind of talk to them about the benefits. And I think Annie will be discussing it a little bit more. She's going to be at select board on the 5th. Just to do like a school department update, and I think she'll delve into that a little bit if you want to learn a little bit about it, but.
Sure, maybe
that's
we
the
should
only
have
thing I know.
or Peter, maybe you could reach out, we can have you reach out to Annie,
Okay.
only as a expert source to talk about that kind of stuff and give her some insight, or if there is something that could be helpful. I mean,
Because I know they're thinking, you know, they're wanting all these buildings to be net zero, probably thinking on the case of yes, we're gonna be getting solar, you know, for having all these net zero buildings, but if the town decides to say, okay, this is gonna cost a lot of money for doing this solar, you know, our electric bills are gonna be heavy for all these buildings. That's the difference between the two. Of,
Yeah.
you know, what's the benefit to the town of having solar put in? Are we gonna be making enough of money?
Right.
Also, the compensating for, yes, planning for heat pumps would be expensive just for the power of running those things.
Yep.
You know, on the assumption that the town's gonna be going solar.
Right.
Yeah, there were comments from the DPW consultants talking about how some towns have, you know, they would try to go net zero with their, or run heat pumps in an effort to be net zero on their DPW buildings, and they quickly install some.
Propane boilers.
Well, pellet stoves and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Pellet boilers to try to heat their place up, because
Yeah.
it's New England, so, yeah.
Well, you know, Shardul, I think, brought it up the last time, right? It's gotta make good business sense. You know, it's gonna bring enough in revenue, then what it's gonna cost, it's a pretty simple decision, right?
But it's gotta work, you know, for the heat, for geothermal and all of these things.
Right.
Again, I think we all agree less is better, but it's gotta also make sure we have heat in the building.
Right.
Great, keep moving, and ambulance updates. So Mike did present to the select board. He gave, basically, what he did is, he gave what it would be, what's his wish list if they went all ALS, all now, everything, he goes all in. He's saying that he's gonna need extra employees. It was as much as 7 new paramedics. But I did speak with him, there are some different scenarios, there's other plans that he could look at, and he said he would try to be at our next finance meeting to present, but if not, not the next one, but the following one. He didn't know if he could be ready in 2 weeks, so.
His direction or request, I guess you could say, from the select board at the last meeting was to gather more specifics. He described his presentation as a 1,000-foot view, so to speak. And so they asked him to really dig into the projected revenues and really come back with, you know, more specifics on similar to what he was asked by the finance committee, what, 3 or 4 meetings ago, basically to put together a pro forma and come in and show us what, you know, what it is that you're looking for. So he told me that it would probably take him a couple of weeks to do that. So tentatively, we're looking at maybe the 19th in February. That's 2 meetings. We'll see. So
I told him
I'm
that-
only telling you that just so you can kind of.
I had a feeling it was gonna take, not our next meeting, but maybe the meeting after.
Yeah.
I said that to him, but he says, well, what if I get it done early? Can I come? I said, you know what? I'll put you on here, and I'll continue to put you on here. And then when you can, as soon as you can, like, I don't want you to not come.
Yeah.
Because, so I will put you on. But most likely, I have a feeling
Yeah.
it will take a little time.
One thing I did look into is somebody I know, she's a dispatcher, and I think she's an EMT in Hampden County, and kind of asking about the advanced life-saving and what other communities are doing. And she was mentioning, like, there's a lot of smaller towns that don't do ALS. And even large towns, like Chicopee doesn't have their own ALS. They sub it out to, I think, Action or some other, maybe 2 companies. And even South Hadley, that they have the station that's near the Commons, I guess that's not even ALS.
Yeah.
So
It is.
very, and she said the expense of doing it relative to the benefit, especially at lower volumes, because I think our volume is what, around 1,500 calls, or is it more, or ambulance calls a year?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around there.
Well, we
Yeah, she
have
said
to-
that that's kind of low. She was just, that this was just something
Well, we
that
would have to have an agreement with someone for ALS, right?
which we do.
Which we do, right,
Yeah, right,
absolutely.
which we do.
So what I was gonna say is that is
Yeah.
a business practice that some of those communities use.
Mhm.
But that's what we need to, we do have a good, a good ALS service provider currently, but we just need to make sure that it's solid and solvent.
Mhm.
Because we've seen some in the area just disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they were for a while, I believe, they were Holyoke, they were Pittsfield.
Yeah,
They lost Holyoke,
yep,
they picked up Munson,
yep.
You're talking about Action?
Action.
But did another company come in? Meaning were they replaced or did they enact their own?
I don't know in Holyoke what they ended up doing.
Oh.
I just know that they lost the contract. I do know that, it's just, to know what the plan is and have a plan B or have what it is or who will come. I do know when we did go out to bid, Action and things change, right? So new companies come aboard, so there might be something out there. But at the time, only Action and Amherst were the only ones that put bids in. So we tried to talk to some of our friends up north and some of the ones over east, and we couldn't get anybody to take us up on that.
Yeah,
All right, so more to come on that. I mean,
it's a big one.
It
It's
is a big one.
I would leave that on your agenda until you get.
That's what
the
I
agency
figured.
one,
Well,
For sure.
Well, we figured out it's what, a $2 million investment roughly? Once
You're-
everything is said and done?
I mean, like I said, I don't wanna get too much into it, but just based upon what the presentation Mike gave, you're looking at 1.2 for Plan A, which is the 3 employees that'll get him to the point where he can start doing the ALS.
1.2 additional or total?
1.2 total.
Because
And
we've
then-
already spent how much, like 700?
Well, that's
no,
not
no,
including
no,
what you've already
1.2
spent.
total for the next
No,
year.
that's not historical, that would be
Yeah.
FY.
I'm talking about
Additions, yes.
total.
Oh, no,
total.
no. He's talking additional.
Yeah.
So that's
talking
going
additional.
forward.
Going
Yes.
forward.
Yeah.
2 million, we're already at 2.
And then
If
2,
we go with that first plan.
yeah, so you're at 1.2 for that. and
Plus
then-
what we've already
Right,
spent.
Plus what you've already spent, or 2.1 ironically, for the full plan.
But let me say what we've
Plus-
already spent, some of that, okay, he has split part EMS and part
Mhm.
fire.
Yes,
But that fire went to 24/7.
Mhm.
So those people that are all there, yes, he's having them do both, but really, they are 24/7, so they need that staff was a lot to do with fire. They only have one person that's really dedicated to the ambulance.
But the last 2 requests, when we went, like for the last 2 warrants, weren't those specifically for, I thought they were specifically for the EMS or the whatever.
they were to pay for he has 2 separate budgets.
Yeah.
One for the fire department and one for the ambulance. The monies that were requested that you went
Yes.
out of stabilization were
Yeah.
to fund the ambulance budget.
Mm-hmm.
That's the budget that we have not identified a means to pay for
That's
for
what I-
FY '26.
But I think what I was trying to get is, I think he split his budget in
Yes.
half, right?
Yeah.
So even if we didn't say we don't do ambulance, I think a lot of those would stay, but they're just on the fire. I think he splits it some of the
The
time.
personnel.
Yeah.
That's
The
current,
staff.
that's on his operating budget, but the additional
Mhm.
asks in the warrant were outside of that.
The additional ask for the 3 employees is about
Yeah, the
237,000.
Yeah,
The additional ask for the other half of the employees to make him what he calls whole is about 340,000. So,
So
if
that's
you
about-
add, but that doesn't include the operations budget, so it's
Right.
about 650 for the ambulance operations budget.
Right.
And then you would have to make, if you were gonna push the plan forward, you would have to make a choice between the smaller of the 2 plans added on to that 650, which gives you the 1.2
Yep.
or the 2.1.
Well, the 1.2, is that including the 600,000 that you just?
Yes.
A 1.2 is including the
That
600.
is, that is what he would need to push this, to push the.
But he's already gotten.
The lesser of the two plans forward and begin working towards making ALS receipts.
I guess
That's
my-
on top of what we've already put in.
That does not include what you've
Right,
already put
so
in, you would
that's-
have to
That's
add.
what I'm
Moving
saying.
forward, right.
That's what I'm saying. What we've already put in is about 600,000.
So you would be
Huh?
at 1.7.
1.7, right.
That's what I'm saying. That's what-
1.7 total cost as you stand for the lesser of the two plans.
How much, do you know offhand, how much have,
Close to $1 million, actually, for the, it's more than 600,000, we did 350, we did 185, it's 550. And then we had our first year, which was 400,000, I think.
so it's $1 million currently, we've already spent,
Right.
that's already
So that's
allocated,
past
gone.
operational.
So it's either
past operational.
2.2
So I
or
think it's-
3.1.
It started in '23.
Right.
23, 24, 25, that's to fund, to get up and running in '23 and to fund the next 2 years. So that's done. And now, what Mike's talking is about the full budget expense for 1 year
Moving forward.
for new money.
And that's fully operational, meaning or that's not even full, is that?
That's, depends on what you select.
Yeah, he gave,
Pro forma.
he
Yeah,
called it.
we just need a pro forma.
We need a
Called it,
real
uh,
detailed plan, because it's.
Working towards
He-
full
he
ALS.
didn't
or
call
moving
it-
Full ALS.
Correct. What he didn't call it Plan A and Plan B, he called it Path 1 and Path 2 when he gave his presentation. And Path 1 was 3 employees to work his way towards full ALS. And he can go ALS with those employees. He can start making those receipts. What he truly needs to be able to say to Action, thank you for your service, we are now handling this full-time, is Path 2, which is
3 million.
I mean, if you factor in everything you've spent, that's where you're up to.
Would that be 2 ALSs or an ALS and a B?
I think that's he would be able to staff a full-time ALS and a BLS.
The only
as well.
difference is that would be an annual number.
I think, don't quote me on that.
Yeah,
But
to get
I was
us-
thinking.
Right.
Well,
the
we'll wait till
second
Mike,
plan is
has a talk with us and he could probably get the
Yeah.
right numbers and figure things out.
Yeah, I mean,
We're just
I think the
stipulating
part of
numbers
the
right now.
part of the plan that he was missing, that he still needs to gather is revenues. That's the hardest part, because there are so many things that play into where these revenues come from. Something as simple as how they bill, how much they chase people around to actually pay the bill. Action brings in a certain percentage. Mike thinks he can do better based upon surveying some of these other agencies that do billing. So it's a projection. He's projecting that he can get a better percentage get a better return on these revenues. And like I said, at that point, it's simple math to see what your costs are versus what your revenues are. And you need a net is really what you're looking for. You're not revenues. You need to see if there's a net return or a net loss.
Now, since you're saying all that about the bills, is there gonna be a new hire to be doing those bills? Okay, all right, I'm
Yeah,
just,
we'll-
I'm just
we'll wait
thinking,
until
I'm
they-
just thinking
Don't go
about
into the
the.
weeds.
Currently it's-
But
What
we're
the
talking
chief was
operational,
for
but we
was-
also have to
yes,
think
but-
about the employees that actually
Right.
doing out the billing. too.
Right, but
I
that's
think-
what,
I think
we
that's
need
it.
a full plan.
Oh,
That's
okay,
what we're
okay,
gonna-
all right, I just didn't know if we
Let's
were
have
gonna be
him come in
hiring
with a
out
budget.
somebody.
Let's just have him come in with a budget, whether it includes a person to do billings, or it is,
Mhm.
or it is an
Outsourced.
outsourced.
I'm just throwing it out
Yeah, yeah,
there.
no, that will all be,
We're
has to
talking
be
about
in.
operational, is operational the buses and
We-
somebody, or?
It's a very
Things and-
specialized billing and
Okay.
process because of the different
Mhm.
insurance companies.
Mhm.
And you
I
have to,
understand.
and you negotiate too.
Yes, and
Right.
so.
Right,
so
and the chief
I-
did make it clear that there were some companies that get, say, 75% of what they bill out, and others that are doing better than that, and
Yep.
others that are doing worse than that.
Yep.
So I'm sure we're gonna go with whatever the best option is, but I think we need to look in a pro forma where we plug in worst-case scenario and mid-case scenario and best-case scenario, which will give us whether we can make money or break even at the worst case make some money at the middle and make a lot of money if we get lucky and we get what we're really looking for.
Yeah.
And that's what a pro forma does. It allows you to modify the income and the variable expenses as you go, and you should be able to just, in a matter of hitting a few buttons, you'll have multiple spreadsheets in front of you that will show you what could happen if the input you put in is honest or as honest as it can be. And I mean real, not honest, as real as it can be.
Right.
Okay?
Okay, moving on. We only have one more item, and this is an item, it's the tapestry contract. So I just, this just came up because I had attended the select board meeting, so I heard about this. And the only thing I have to say about that, it's a new contract that they're looking to do, Tapestry's looking to do with the select board. But my concern is it's 15,000, could be 15,000 a year. Now, when we did one of the things that was $10,000 that we talked about last fall at the
What is that, what is,
I'm not, I guess, let
It's-
Michael explain because he knows it better
So,
than I do.
Ben from the Board of Health had been approached by Craig's Doors and Tapestry because Tapestry is a substance abuse remediation
Okay.
specialist company. And they have worked with other quasi semi-homeless populations or shelters like Craig's Doors in other communities. And they recognize that this could be a potential population that they could work with and try to give some assistance to. Hadley is one of the communities that has been collecting opioid settlement money
Yeah.
for a while.
Mhm.
And so they approached the Board of Health about it. They presented a request to basically work with this company, and this was the cost of the contract that they put together.
So I wasn't even gonna go into like whether it's, my concern was, similar to what happened at the last fall town meeting, we entered into a contract with, was it not Callahan, but something like that to deal with our new meeting, our new
form of government?
form of government.
Right.
Thank you. It was a $10,000 contract,
yes.
and we signed it, or we started something before.
Has the money been allocated?
Allocated.
Okay.
And
Right.
that was the issue
was
when
the
I saw this. I'm like, wait a minute, the money hasn't gone through town meeting and has not been allocated. I did not want to get in the same spot as we just came from
Mhm.
with the money, signing a contract before the money was allocated.
Yeah, so
And-
you don't have to, so that part of it actually was taken care of. The, Linda put together a article for town meeting, I think it was last town meeting about the opioid money, where it was voted that the opioid money would fall under the purview of the treasurer and the town administrator.
Yeah.
To be allocated for the purposes that allow this. So the
So-
money is basically, is it in the general fund?
It's going into the special, it's being collected in the special revenue fund right now.
Right.
It's different than when the first year when it came out, it ended up being tied up for over a year because it had to go back and get allocated, and I think we put it into maybe a revolving account. But then with state legislation, we're then allowed to then put into a special revenue account and spend it directly.
I just thought the money that we had, and I remember 55,000
That is what we just voted.
At the time that we had.
at the
Yeah.
time, but
At
I
the special town
thought the
meeting.
purpose of that was for the new person that you're gonna be getting for the police
For the
and
police.
Right.
for the mental health
Yeah.
person, whatever, counselor.
Yes, well, in the budget, it had, we had the 535 or something in funding, and then it was allocated between, it was an increase to the Board of Health and an increase to the police was 40, and the balance was in the Board of Health for the Tapestry program contract there. As it turns out, especially only starting halfway through the year, it won't be fully used. It's going to be, they bill monthly, we cover it monthly, so we're going to recover some of that this year and use it going forward.
And my program won't be starting until the next fiscal year anyway, so none of that funding will be used, so there'll be plenty to pay for this if the select board agrees to go down this road.
And what specifically is it? It's for
It's-
the homeless population?
Their program that the Board of Health would like to do is specific to that population, specific to Craig Stores. I guess it's something that they do in the other communities. They work specifically with vulnerable populations like that.
So the thing is, though, I'm still on the person. You were getting a person for, and we mentioned the 55, and it had to do with the person. So if we start using every year this money, we are not going to have enough for that person.
Well, the way that the article reads is that as that money comes in, it is all under the authority of any monies that come in specifically for the opioid. It is all under the purview of the select board and the town administrator. So as the money comes in, we'll always be able to use it for that purpose. We put enough money in there to cover half of a year because we had fall town meeting in November. We were hoping to hire in January, so it was only half of an annual salary plus the tapestry money. So that's what we had at the time. That's the only monies that we had at the time. But the article technically frees up all of that money as it continues to come in, and then now we have, what, 112,000, I think you said?
That sounds
I
right.
think there's 112,000 in that account
And
now,
how-
and it will continue to come in for the next
And if we
4 or
spend
5
it,
years.
we spend it by putting it into, by spending it through the budget, then we fund the budget with the special revenue funds that we use, just like we are going to do with the special revenue collected for the ambulance. And because we have enough in there, we're going to apply 90,000 towards the ambulance budget for FY '26.
And the reason that my program hasn't taken off, just as a footnote, is just because the individual who we were trying to hire for the job is unable to leave the full-time employment that they're in right now. So we're just pausing until we get to that moment and hoping that we can get it in for July 1.
No, I mean, I understand why you don't have the person yet, but still, I knew it wasn't forever, this money, but this
Right.
pocket of money, my thought is that was the focus, was what you were gonna use that money for. You were gonna use that money to fund this position.
Yep.
And it was gonna help you in the senior center.
That was my initial focus, and we started putting that plan together when I was just the police chief and approached Carolyn with that
Yeah.
idea maybe a year ago, somewhere around there. She concurred with the idea, and we started the ball moving forward. And then at some point before Carolyn was gone, the Board of Health began approaching her with their idea with this tapestry situation. It got to the point where it was basically approved by her office. She thought it was a good idea, but it had to go in front of the select board. I just simply pushed it forward so Ben could explain it to them and see what they thought.
Now, do we have to spend it in 5 years, or we can spend it over any time period
It can
we want?
sit for as long as, it'll stay as long as we don't spend it.
Because even Craig's Doors is not gonna, eventually, that project is probably gonna move forward.
The
and build on.
the MOU has an opt-out clause built into it. My guess is that this portion of it won't last longer than a couple of years. I don't know. My hope is that our program will grow to the extent that we can offer those services to everyone. We have a bit of a unique situation with Craig's Doors, so we'll kind of take a load off of our shoulders. There's a little bit of a trust situation with the population that's there and our officers and things like that. Even though our clinician is not a police officer, there's still that little, mistrust. So, we felt like if we just step back and Carolyn approved their project, they would have a better chance of being able to assist those folks than we would.
So this, you feel like Tapestry would take a little bit of a burden off of the police?
Yeah, I truly believe that. As long as that project, the Craig's Doors project, so to speak, is there. And we know that there's a time frame on that as well, so it won't be long. But, like I said, my hope is that our program will grow, because we intend on not only continuing to have the embedded clinician with our police officers, going to mental health and substance abuse calls, but also being able to offer those services to employees in town, residents in town, and any calls that we go on, specific to remediation from substance abuse and opioids in particular. We know the funding won't be there forever. We hope that the program will become valuable enough that 4, 5, 6 years from now, when the funding is gone, the town will be willing to continue the program, in an operational budget. But this is where we're at right now, and we have funding available that's
Well-
only can be spent for this particular purpose. So-
My feel is that there isn't gonna be that much money going into this fund. And it is 5 or 6 years, you're saying they could be funded, but that person, that individual could be, you're talking maybe a $80,000. So that's gonna get eaten up a lot quicker, especially if we're taking out 15,000 out of it every year. We're not getting that much money.
Right.
That will be eaten up really quick, and, or we're talking maybe next year, we end up having to move that person over. If we can, every $15,000 that we are.
That's an extra year over 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And and I'm just, and I feel obviously, you feel empathy for the people that are homeless and dealing with Craig's Doors, because that dealt with them, I understand. It's just, this money was for, you would think that it would be towards Hadley residents.
Yeah.
And I think, you have money that's not really going to people that are in our town.
Yep, that was
are-
a
How do you know
concern
that?
that was brought up.
I know we don't know that, you're right.
Okay, all right.
You're right. But what I'm saying is
Because
that.
I know of people.
What I'm saying is my point is that I don't know what the makeup of Craig's Doors is, you're 100% right, but Craig's Doors takes in quite a bit people from in our town and out of our town. So it's a wide array of people. If this money could have been, again, more towards people that are residents and help and extend that program for at least another year. That's just my point.
Yeah.
well, I thought the position that you talked about was probably something that was well needed in the town and
Oh,
could
it
be
is.
very helpful.
It is.
And so, I didn't want to see, and I thought that's what this money was going to be all used for, and I didn't want to see it depleted in any way, because I want to see it go for that purpose. I think there's a real need for that person.
I suspect that the board, when the board had their last meeting there, at least a couple of them feel the exact same way as you. Ben was asked to go back and meet with them again and see if they would be willing to either expand their program or whether or not we should, not engage with this company and, push all the funds towards internal, so to speak. I think that'll be a matter of discussion the next time we get it on an agenda. Ben said he needed a couple of weeks to go through it, so
Yeah.
when you see it pop up on the select board agenda, tune in or log
Yeah.
on.
Well, that's how I ended up seeing it, and it was more of not necessarily what was in the contract that I was concerned with. I was concerned with taking away from what the plan was, and your person that you have, that we had a plan for this money.
It was the first thing I thought of too, when Carolyn had mentioned it to me. But, at the same time, like I said, in the position I was in, as long as she said yes to me, I was like, okay, I'm fine with it. I can run this program and you figure out where the funding comes from. I'm in a little bit of a different seat now, so it is a concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think that's what happens, is that's where I've been getting a lot of this. All these things, all of this stuff is good, right? But this is all we have, and we're, if you use that for this, you're gonna have to take away from someone else.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't take away from them this year, but next year or the year after, it's gonna be taken away. I mean, you spend on this, you're gonna lose somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. So, all right, I guess we went through all the agenda items. Does anybody else have
Do you
anything?
want to set a future date?
We have a couple future dates we talked about. Let's see if that still works. I have for a future date, we talked about Wednesdays on the opposite Wednesdays of the select board. So I have penciled in here the 12th and the 26th.
That's what I have.
I will not be able to make it the 12th.
Okay. Does anyone else have?
I will try and make it. I have a medical appointment that morning, and depending on what they want to do, see how I feel.
Okay. All
And
right.
the 26th is open.
Okay, so I can keep it on there penciled in, but, but as of right now, it looks like you are gonna be presenting numbers you're talking the select board, not until the 19th. Are you thinking you're gonna be ready more the 19th?
No, we're gonna do a first
Round?
pass on the 5th, right?
Oh, you're gonna do a first pass on the 5th?
Yep.
Okay,
We have a couple of budget meetings tomorrow, and then we have to go through and have a second meeting with some of the departments to see if we can make some reductions.
okay.
And we wanted to make sure we could do those privately first before we,
So if you have a first pass on the 5th, you can do a first pass with us on the 12th. And then we can watch, Peter can always watch, because we're not gonna be voting on anything. It's just purely just the pass-through. And
Would you be able to
then,
come to the select board meeting, and so we just.
Yeah, why don't we do dual,
I don't have a problem with that.
what time is that meeting?
same time as these ones, 6
6?
o'clock. Yep.
Yeah,
What
only
night?
thing I have is solar, but that's it earlier, 4:30.
And what date?
The 5th?
Sorry,
It'll be the 5th.
March 5th.
No,
No,
February.
Next
February
week.
5th. Next week. Well, next week.
I told you, we're cranking.
All right.
Going as fast as we can. We're
Okay.
trying to stay on top of it.
All right, so is that what you would like to do? Are you available on the 5th?
Yep.
Andy, are
Yes,
you
I am.
available on the 5th?
I can do it.
Okay.
We
So-
got no choice now, right?
So we better get that.
So we will cancel our meeting and not have one on the 12th.
Oh,
And instead, we will just move our meeting to February 5th. And at this point, it'll be a joint meeting with the select board. Will you be able to post that for us? Because you do the select
Yeah.
board meeting.
I-
So our agenda is your agenda on what you're presenting.
And then we're still keeping the 26th.
Same time, 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
It'll be a 6
So it'll be like
o'clock,
3
and it'll
weeks.
be in
Yeah.
that room over there.
Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah,
Sounds
I
good.
will
And then I'm
set a
think-
reminder right now.
And then I'm thinking ambulance can, by the 26th, will probably have something for us. And that would leave plenty of time.
That sounds
Yeah.
feasible.
Yeah. Okay, so I will not be doing an agenda, you'll do the posting for the select board joint meeting, and then I will do one for the 26th of February. Okay,
and I will make a motion.
great.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.